What's up everybody, welcome back to Ethan's Exotic Escapades. Today we're at the Riverbank Zoo in Columbia, South Carolina, and we are going to be doing a walkthrough today to see what kind of animals we can find. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe to join the tribe, and let's get started. Once we first walked in, we are actually greeted on the right by these North American river otters, and we have actually seen these guys before. You can check out the video that I did at the South Carolina Aquarium where we saw some river otters just like these guys. River otters typically weigh up to 20 pounds, and they're carnivores, so they eat a lot of fish in the wild. They normally get a little over 2 feet long and have webbed feet, which help them with swimming in fast-moving water. They're also very playful, and did I not mention they're adorable? Moving on to our next enclosure, we have this big guy, and this is a grizzly bear. Sadly, today this guy was taking a nap, but don't worry. I have a video from the last time I was here and have him jumping and playing on his tire right here. Adult grizzly bears can weigh anywhere between 400 to 600 pounds. Although he might look friendly here, in the wild, these guys will rip and shred you to pieces with their extremely sharp claws and their extremely sharp teeth. They can get up to 25 years old and are omnivores, so they can eat fruits, vegetables, and meat. The next enclosure is this beautiful outdoor enclosure that has the Hamadryas baboons. Baboons are a species of monkey, and these guys can weigh anywhere between 20 to over 60 pounds. They typically live to their late 20s in the wild, but in captivity they've been known to live much longer. These guys are herbivores, which means they eat a variety of different vegetables and plants. These guys also will groom themselves, but one of the funniest things that they're known for is they have a completely red butt. As I was walking to the next enclosure, I saw this sign for the Saluda Sky Ride that's coming in 2025. The next enclosure was the African lion enclosure, but they weren't out today. Luckily, I have a video I took the last time I was here, so take a look. Moving on to the next enclosure, this is where the Amur tiger used to be, and sadly he has passed away, but I have a video from the last time I was here, and here you go. This tiger species is actually endangered in the wild. Amur tigers can weigh anywhere between 200 to over 400 pounds. They typically live around 10 to 15 years in the wild and are carnivores. The next location is the Koala knockabout. And yes, you guessed it, this has the koalas in it, and koalas are actually threatened in the wild. On the right, they actually had a koala that was on the outside. One thing that's very interesting about these guys is they sleep for a majority of their life. They are extremely lazy creatures and only come out really when it's time to eat. Here's the other koala they had, and he was giving us the cold shoulder. But these guys can live up to around 18 years old and weigh up to a little over 30 pounds. And they are herbivores. Right beside the koalas was the Lorikeet experience, and here we could feed a whole bunch of birds inside of this enclosed area. Once we made it inside, we are greeted by a whole bunch of coconut lorikeets. Here's a video of my girlfriend feeding some type of food to this lorikeet. Coconut lorikeets are omnivores, and they can weigh up to a little over 4 ounces. They can also live over 20 years old. I of course had to get in on this lorikeet feeding action, so I had some of the food as well, and I started feeding some lorikeets. I had 3 of these guys actually jump on top of me, and they were going absolutely crazy over this stuff. I believe it was some kind of nectar, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Whatever this stuff was, it did not last long because they drank it really fast. They were very sweet and gentle. On the way out of the lorikeet experience, I decided to take a video of a couple of these guys because they were hanging upside down. Silly little buggers. The next enclosure we saw was the Komodo dragon enclosure, and it had an interior and exterior. This is the outside portion of the enclosure, and I've never seen him outside before, but he was outside today. And if you don't know anything about Komodo dragons, these lizards get absolutely huge. They've been known to get up to 10 feet long and weigh over 300 pounds. They can live up to 30 years old and are actually venomous. Sadly, Komodo dragons are endangered, but this is the interior portion of the enclosure for that Komodo dragon. I show y'all a look on this side and the other side so that you can get a good look, because this is a new enclosure that they just recently built. Connected to the same building where the Komodo dragon enclosure is, they have this enclosure that has a green tree python. Next up was a black tree monitor enclosure, but I could not find him. Stay tuned though, because I find one later in the video. Right beside that enclosure was a Cayman Island blue iguana, and he was trying his best to hide behind all of the plants that were in his enclosure, but these guys are endangered in the wild. They are herbivores and can weigh up to around 30 pounds. Right across from all of those enclosures was this enclosure, and this enclosure was a very big enclosure, and it had these Siamangs, and Siamangs are actually a type of ape. Siamangs are endangered and can weigh up to 25 pounds. They are omnivores and are believed to be able to live up to 40 years old. These guys were just chilling in their hammocks. As we walked further down, they had a farm area, and they had this really cool thing that you could do where you could pet all of these goats and brush them with these little brushes, and they had a variety of different goats in this enclosure. I, of course, had to pet every single goat and brush every single goat because I did not want any of them to feel left out. All of the goats that were inside of this enclosure were extremely friendly. Some of them would even follow me after I had finished brushing them, but I had to be careful because they would get jealous of each other. Here's a shot of all of the different colors that they had in this enclosure, and another shot of me brushing this goat. They had this guy, which was the biggest goat that they had in here. I'm not exactly sure what type of goat this was, but later he started climbing on this fence and trying to eat some random stuff off of a tree, and this is one of the goats that kept following me around everywhere that I went, and he just really loved to be pet with that brush. This guy was my favorite goat inside of this enclosure. I think he wanted me to take him home. A little past the goat encounter, they had these potbelly pigs. They were out sunbathing today. These pigs can live up to 21 years old and can weigh up to 110 pounds. Inside of the barn area, they had two alpacas. Alpacas typically live up to 20 years old and can weigh up to 190 pounds. They are herbivores and can be very sweet in captivity, but I have heard that they spit sometimes. Here is an outside look at one of the alpacas that was inside of the barn, and he thought that I would not catch him looking at me, but I caught you, buddy. Moving down, I found this enclosure that had an ostrich in it, and he did not look too impressed with me, and he just started walking off. In the same enclosure that the ostrich was in, there was another animal in here, and if you can't see what that is, that right there is a zebra, and he was hanging out in the back because I think he was camera shy. This next enclosure houses the American alligator, and I was actually surprised that he was out because normally whenever I come here and look in this enclosure, he is never all the way out. So I walk a little bit further down and get a very good shot so that you can see how big this guy is. They can typically live up to 50 years old and can weigh up to 500 pounds. They can even get up to 15 feet long, and they are carnivores. In the next enclosure, it had a bunch of giraffes. In the back, you can see a mom and dad, and the little giraffe right there on the left is actually their baby. Giraffes can live up to 27 years old and are herbivores. Giraffes can get 19 feet tall and weigh over 2,800 pounds. You can also feed these giraffes, but they weren't doing it today. But don't worry, I have a video of my girlfriend feeding a giraffe the last time we were here. In this video, we're feeding this giraffe some lettuce, and you can see its tongue is incredibly long. Giraffes will use their tongue to grip onto food. In the wild, they can use their long tongue to their advantage by using it to reach high up trees. Once they've reached the top of the tree, they can use their long tongue to extend and pluck off leaves. In other words, they have prehensile tongues. In the next enclosure, they had African spurred tortoises, which are also known as sulcatas, and they're listed as vulnerable. These tortoises can get very big, weighing up to 110 pounds, and can live up to 150 years old. The next enclosure had a Eurasian eagle owl, and you can barely see him. He was hiding all the way up there in the branches. Oh, he saw me though. Beside that enclosure, there was this enclosure that had a variety of different birds. I try to show as many as I can, but I'm sure I've missed a couple here because they were hiding. But you can see one of the birds on the left over there, and there was one that just jumped off. They were flying all over the place. But my favorite bird was this guy right here, and that is a hornbill. More specifically, the red-billed hornbill. And he was not looking at me right there, but I saw this guy, which is another one that was looking on the ground. Above him was a resting hammerkop. I was so obsessed with this hornbill that I had to get a close-up shot of him playing with something on the ground, and I also tried to get a better look at this hammerkop, but I couldn't really get a good shot. The next enclosure had this cinereous vulture in it, and I normally can't get a good shot of this vulture whenever I'm here, but today he was out and about. Across from that enclosure is the white rhino exhibit, and these guys all have their own names: Bill, Winfred, Conde. And they were all three out and about just like the vulture. Well, not just like the vulture. They were a little bit more lazy than the vulture was. All three of them were out sunbathing. Can you believe they all weigh over 3,000 pounds? And I also took one more shot of them from the other side. The next enclosure we went to was the slender-tailed meerkat enclosure. They can live up to 14 years old and weigh about 2 pounds. Meerkats are known for digging burrows and hiding in them to escape from their predators. Meerkats are omnivores and typically live in groups together. Groups of meerkats are also called mobs. They are very playful creatures but are known to be skittish in the wild. They are most known for the way that they stand up on their hind legs to survey the land. Let's check back in with these guys that were digging their burrow. I could sit here all day and watch these guys dig. They are so cute and adorable. There's one playing hide and seek with the other one. Meerkats sure know how to have fun. I bet they never get tired. The next enclosure had a white-faced saki monkey and a two-toed sloth in here as well. On the bottom you can see the white-faced saki monkey. They can weigh a little over 5 pounds and are omnivores. Up in the top left is a Hoffman's two-toed sloth, and I couldn't see him at first, but I zoom in on him here in a second. There he is. And these guys are extremely slow-moving creatures, and they are herbivores. Over here on the right, I found another saki monkey, and this one is the female. You can tell because of the lighter color. The next enclosure has my favorite monkey, the Jeffries marmoset, and there was a whole bunch of these little guys in here. They are very small, typically only weighing about 500 grams and only getting 30 centimeters long. They are omnivores and are extremely intelligent for their size. Here's something I bet you didn't know about marmosets. They're actually colorblind, red-green colorblind to be specific. Right before I was about to leave this enclosure, I got a good shot of this marmoset, and he wanted to make sure that I got a good shot of him. He struck a pose for the camera. The next enclosure had these Bolivian gray titi monkeys, and they were both up at the top of their enclosure. I think they were going on a date. After interrupting their date, I found these golden lion tamarins in the next enclosure, and these are endangered. I can see where they got their name. They really do look like mini versions of lions. They are omnivores and can get around 10 inches tall and weigh a little over a pound, so they are incredibly small. They are also very social and playful. Right next to them was this enclosure, which has the red-ruffed lemurs in it, and they are critically endangered. If y'all don't know this about me, I love lemurs. These guys are herbivores and can weigh a little over 8 pounds. You can see that guy in the back. All of these were currently under medical treatment from their staff here. I'm not sure exactly what was wrong with them, but hopefully everything will be okay. In the wild, they typically live up to 20 years old, but in captivity, they can live 30. In the next enclosure, they had a fishing cat, and these are currently listed as vulnerable, but they get their name from how they catch their prey. They will go in the water to catch their prey. Fishing cats are incredibly good at swimming and are carnivores that can live a little over 10 years old under human captivity. Next up was the squirrel monkey enclosure, and these guys really do look like little squirrels. They can live up to 20 years in captivity and are omnivores. They can weigh up to 40 ounces and are known for being very curious. Look at this guy up here checking us out. This next enclosure has my favorite species of lemur. These are the ring-tailed lemurs. Sadly, they're currently endangered. They are omnivores and can get around 2 feet long and weigh a little over 6 pounds. They typically live around 20 years old in the wild. Although they're known to be friendly in captivity, they are not known to be friendly in the wild. So even though they look cute and cuddly, don't pick them up in the wild. This next enclosure is the inside portion of the western lowland gorilla enclosure. There is an outside part, but this is the only one that we could see today, and it wanted nothing to do with this. It was sitting in the back, not caring about anything in the world, but this is the best shot I could get of it. Someone's cranky. The next area we went to was the kangaroo walkthrough, and they had Tamar wallabies in here, as well as some Bennett's wallabies, and they also had red kangaroos in here as well, which we got to see all of them. Here is the beginning. Whenever I started walking through, you can see that guy right there, which is one of the wallabies, and he is eating some food. If you look really close, you can see the tail of a baby sticking out of the pocket of that wallaby. Behind the wallabies was a bunch of red kangaroos hanging out and about. And here's another shot of the 2 wallabies. Before walking out, I had to take a shot of this cute kangaroo eating some lettuce. The next place we went to was this area outside that housed all of the flamingos. And there is a whole bunch, even those 2 fighting back there. Across from the flamingos was this enclosure that had swan gooses in it, but I only could find one. Normally there's 2 in here, so I think the other one was hiding from us. After passing those 2, it was time to enter the birdhouse, which has been closed for a while, but it was finally open. So I first stopped at this, but a lot of the animals were off exhibit here. This was my favorite bird, though, the hornbill. And then we went to this other bird enclosure and saw a variety of different birds. I'm not sure if I got all of them on film, but you can see how many birds are in here. There's a lot. In this next enclosure, all I could find was the Bali myna, which are critically endangered right now, and there were 2 of them back there. This next enclosure had some more variety of different birds, but the one that stuck out to me the most was the spotted dickup, which is that bird right there on the ground. I also tried to get a good shot of the starling that was in there, but I was not able to get a really good look at that. This next enclosure had some very colorful birds. I tried to get as many as I could in this video, but it was kind of hard to get them because they were flying. But my favorite were the black-necked stilts that were on the bottom. Sadly, when I got to the penguin exhibit, I noticed that it is under construction, so we'll have to come back and see what they've done with the penguins. The next enclosure we went to was the sea lion and harbor seal enclosure that they had. I could not find the harbor seal, but here's one of the sea lions that they have, and it is a really big boy. He was just sunbathing at the top, and they actually just recently got this brand new sea lion, and he was swimming all around. Next up, I came to the Galapagos tortoise enclosure, which you can see some of the smaller Galapagos tortoises, and this is one of their big ones that they have. And these guys live extremely long, just like the sulcatas, but they get a lot bigger than the sulcata tortoises. The last and my favorite area we went to was the Aquarium and Reptile Center. On the outside, they have these Burmese black mountain tortoises, which there weren't any outside. They were all hiding in their box. You can see one right there. On the other side, they had radiated tortoises, and they were all outside of their box, unlike the other tortoise species we saw. Sadly, these guys are critically endangered as well. Heading inside, the first enclosure I stopped at had a pine snake in it, which is that one on the left, as well as two different species of rattlesnakes. Here's one right here, as well as two others. The two different species of rattlesnakes were the eastern diamondback and the canebrake rattlesnake. You can tell the difference between them by looking at their patterns. In the next enclosure, there was a black tree monitor, which I told y'all I would show y'all one later in the video, and here he is. He's actually going to hunt for his food right now, which I've never gotten on camera before at the zoo. He did miss his food, but it was still funny to watch him. The next enclosure had emerald tree boas as well as dart frogs, and these frogs were blue. And if you don't know this already about dart frogs, they are poisonous. They also had some bushmasters in here as well. That's what that snake right there was. And up towards the very top of the enclosure, you can see a good look at the emerald tree boa. And I'm going to give y'all one last look at some of these poison dart frogs. They actually had some other color ones too. The next enclosure had a blue tree monitor, which are currently endangered. Normally, whenever I come here, I can never see this guy, but he was out today. Moving on to this next enclosure, we have the eyelash vipers, and they had a couple of these guys in here. Next, we have this enclosure that has two humongous snakes in it. That was the first one, and here is the second one. These guys are green anacondas, as well as some type of fish. The next enclosure had a burrowing owl, some type of quail, as well as some parrots, but I could not see any of the parrots. There were also white-winged doves in here as well. But you can see the owl up here, and he was trying to hide from us, but I got him. In this enclosure, they had a whole bunch of juvenile Galapagos tortoises. Next up, we have more of the Cayman Island blue iguanas that we saw from earlier, and here is one of them right there, just chilling on the ground. This next enclosure has some spiny-tailed agamids, which I love these little guys, and there was one that was super duper lively in here, and he was coming right up close to the camera for me to get a good shot of him. These are also referred to as Uromastyx. This next enclosure had western diamondback rattlesnakes as well as red rattlesnakes in here, which I try and get a good shot of a couple of these guys in here. Here's two right here laying together right in the front, and there's one right back there. This next enclosure had a monitor lizard that's normally not in here, but it does have blue-tongued skinks, frilled dragons, and it also has some bearded dragons in here as well. You can see all three of them in this shot right there, so make sure to pause the video if you can't see them all. Beside that enclosure, there's this one that has chuckwallas and Gila monsters, which you can kind of see the tail and head of the chuckwalla. And then here is a video of some of the Gila monsters. In the next enclosure, there was this black-headed python. In the next room, they had this enclosure that has the ocellated mountain viper, which is critically endangered. Beside him was this European long-nosed viper, which was in the corner. Next, we have some more poison dart frogs. These were the strawberry dart frogs, and they were in the very back. In the next enclosure, they had a juvenile king cobra, and these guys are incredibly dangerous. They are venomous, and this one is just a baby. Moving past him, I got to these yellow-banded poison dart frogs. You can see them in the back. Beside those, there was a tomato frog, and he was out and about. Next up was the Panamanian golden frogs, and these are critically endangered right now, but they had a whole bunch of these guys in this enclosure. Beside them was one of my favorites, which is the Vietnamese mossy frog. You can see him back there, and he really does look like he's just a lump of moss. Next is the Aruba Island rattlesnake, which is critically endangered. He was hiding out in the back, but I got a good shot of him. Next was my favorite snake because it looked just like the mossy frog. This is the Mangshan mountain viper, and he was very good at camouflage. I could almost not even see him. This next little area had a bunch of amphibians and reptiles that they were hatching. And in the back, there were some leaf-tailed geckos and some giant day geckos that they were breeding. And then right beside it, there was this little baby black tree monitor. The final snakes in this room was this gaboon viper that was in this enclosure, as well as this other snake that was in here with it, which is the West African green mamba, and he was hanging out up in the trees. The last thing that was in this room was this big saltwater aquarium that had a variety of different fish, including a stingray that was down there. And this was basically a transition to the next area, which is the aquarium area, and there's a starfish right there. Moving into the next room, we're greeted by this tank, which is part of an even larger tank that has a variety of different fish in it. There's triggerfish, there are some porgfish, there is a cowfish, and two very shiny fish up there. It would take me forever to name all the fish in this tank because here is another part of that same tank that goes way far back over there. And there are even sharks in this tank. And I also have spotted some angelfish in this tank and even Dory, which is right there. There is Dory. Those are also called blue tangs. That's the real name of those fish. And as I kept on waiting, I saw this green sea turtle that was swimming around and this humongous eel. I almost missed him, but I saw him at the last second. So luckily, I got this awesome shot of him. Moving a little bit further down, this is still part of that same tank, but this is a little curved area where you can look inside of the tank from a different area, and there are a whole bunch of other fish hiding out over here that you wouldn't see in the other locations of the tank. I stayed in this area for a while, but let's move to the next tank. In this tank, there are 4 different species of fish. There are indigo hamlet, barred hamlet, lantern bass, and brown chromis. My favorite fish in this tank has to be this guy down here at the bottom. This next tank had some coal tang and long-nosed butterfly fish. This tank also had 2 different species of coral, whisker coral and frog spawn coral. This tank also had a couple of other fish species in here with those other fish as well. All the fish in this tank were very colorful. This next tank had some pajama cardinal fish and some green chromis in it, as well as some lyre tail anthias and Y-bar shrimp gobies. My favorite fish in this tank was the pajama cardinal fish, not only because their name has pajama in it, but they had really pretty patterns. Right beside that tank was the red lionfish tank, which is a species of fish that is venomous and are invasive in a lot of different areas, but I think they are awesome. Next to the lionfish tank, there was this tank, which is definitely my favorite tank of the day because it had 2 different species of garden eels in it. Those are these small little noodle-looking fish. This tank also had some threadfin cardinal fish in here as well. This next tank had a whole bunch of different clownfish in here with these sea anemones. And there were also a couple of other fish that we've seen before, like there was a butterfly fish down there. This next tank had some cardinal fish and some gobies, as well as some sea urchins. Those, I believe, are long-spined sea urchins. This random colorful fish was in here as well, but I'm not sure what kind that was. This next tank had a Japanese spider crab in it, and they're from deep, cold ocean waters. Next was this tank that had grunt sculpin, sailfin sculpin, a species of anemone, and this, which I think is a sea cucumber, and also had these bat stars, which are those really big, fat-looking starfish that was in this tank. But I actually really like these sculpins. They have funny-looking faces. Across from that tank was this shark tank that had 3 different species of sharks in here, as well as a Cortez angelfish. This next tank was another one of my favorites because it had some ornate cowfish in it, as well as some potbelly seahorses. And how can you not love seahorses? They're absolutely adorable, and they had so many of them in here. The next tank had a wolf eel, as well as these weird looking fish in here with it. But the wolf eel was hiding in the back. He was not showing his face. And there were also some sea anemones in here as well. Next, there was this tank that has a giant Pacific octopus in it, and it is almost never out because it is a master of camouflage and it hides very well, and it can actually change color. But today, it was out, and this is actually a female. I don't know how they tell the gender for these, but I just know based off of what one of the workers said to me that this is a female. And it stayed out for a while. I got a bunch of different angles of it moving, and I even got this shot of it looking head on. It was awesome. Right in front of the octopus was these moon jellies, and normally they have the light on so that you can see them a lot better, and they'll be very vibrant. They'll be a blue color, but I think they turned them off because they were feeding these guys, and this is the first time I've ever got to see this. As I was walking to the last room of this building, I found this area where they are making coral and taking care of some of the coral that they have. And I also found this area where it looks like are breeding some different lizard species and animals. The first enclosure in the final room had these bumblebee walking toads, which I have never seen before in my life, but they actually do walk. Next were these Madagascar hissing cockroaches. Then I saw these neon day geckos, which I've also never heard of before, but they were these little guys hanging on the sides of the glass. They were very, very pretty. The next enclosure had these juvenile leaf-tailed geckos, and they were hanging all over the glass. Then the next enclosure had the Henkel's leaf-tailed geckos and standing day geckos. They also loved the glass. After those, I found this enclosure, which had a whip scorpion in it. You can see him right there against that bark. I'll try and get a good look at him. Right under that were these green banana roaches, which were a little hard to see. You can kind of see them right there. And then these larval amphibians, which are tadpoles. And after that, there were these death's head cockroaches, which you can see all over the underside of this bark, and domino cockroaches. Above them was this enclosure that had the white-eyed giant leaf-tailed geckos and giant day geckos, but I couldn't find any giant day geckos. In the next enclosure, there are a bunch of eastern cottonmouths, which are a venomous species, and they get their name from the inside of their mouth looking like cotton. Next to them is this huge alligator snapping turtle, and no, he is not dead. This is actually something that they do to catch fish in their mouth. And in the final enclosure for this video, there are a couple of different species of snakes. That is a southern copperhead back there. You can see the Hershey kiss shaped pattern. Those are venomous. Over here in the left corner, this is a corn snake. They are not venomous, but this guy behind him is a timber rattler snake, and they are extremely venomous, so watch out. Alright, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope y'all liked the walkthrough of the zoo. Thank you for joining me on this exotic escapade. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe to join the tribe, and I'll see you on the next one.